No DQ Galaxy. We are live with a recap of AEW Dynamite for Wednesday, May the 1st, 2024. Shout out to everybody watching this, whether it's live or on demand. An interesting show this week from Manitoba, Winnipeg, home of Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega. We kicked off the show with Tony Khan via satellite from Jacksonville, Florida. He talked about running the show remotely, but then we had no signal. The Young Bucks interrupted the feed. They cited technical difficulties and said that they cannot be fired from AEW because they have ironclad contracts. And they said, since Tony Khan is unable to work, they are succeeding him. They're taking over. We had a new intro for AEW Dynamite, which was the old intro, but with the Elite, the Bucks, and Okada. Nice way to start off the show. I liked it. Young Bucks pulling their weight, trying to take over. I enjoyed it. We then had the AEW World Heavyweight Champion, Swerve Strickland, come into the ring for a promo. He said that AEW doesn't deserve selfish, power-hungry, I almost said MVPs, EVPs. He wanted to know who was his opponent for Double or Nothing. And we got the Young Bucks on the big screen. They said that Swerve's success is in his head. And they were fining him for insulting them, using profanity. And then they revealed the opponent at Double or Nothing, who is Christian Cage, making his first appearance since losing the TNT title to Adam Copeland. Now, Christian came in the ring. He acted like he was going to talk, but then he hit Swerve with the microphone. Swerve tried to fight back, but was outnumbered. You had Kill Switch and Nick Wayne out there, of course, and Mama Wayne. Christian took out Swerve with the Kill Switch on the AEW title belt. And then Nick Wayne delivered Wayne's World to Prince Nana. Then Christian got on the mic and said he never forgot about Nick Wayne being attacked in his own gym by Swerve several months ago. And then how Christian and Swerve were tag team partners, biggest show of all time, All In, and Swerve lost. He said he is going to end Swerve's title reign before it even gets started. And then Swerve's daughter isn't going to want anything to do with Swerve. And she's going to have a father that she can be proud of for the rest of her life in Christian Cage. And then for good measure, Kill Switch ripped out a piece of Swerve's hair. It was a good angle. I agree with Colin Andrew, though. The problem with this match is the same problem as Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles. The champion is not losing in his first title defense on pay-per-view. It's just not going to happen. Christian is a guy to be fed to Swerve. That's all fine and dandy, but it's going to be a predictable outcome here. Should be a good match. However, it does have the same issue. I liked Christian's performance. That was well done. We had Adam Copeland, the TNT champion, coming to the ring for the Cope Open, and he was going to face a member of the House of Black. Now, as soon as this was announced, I figured, okay, it's going to be the weak link of the group who's going to do the job on the show. And sure enough, that person, Buddy Matthews. It was a good match. Obviously, Copeland's not losing this. Buddy's being fed to him. So on that note, it was probably longer than it needed to be. Like, it was very competitive. It went quite a long time. And they both barely beat the 10 count. They traded shots. And Buddy got hurt. And the trainer was checking in on him. And then after the break, Matthews avoided the spear. He had a jackhammer, which Copeland kicked out of. And then Copeland delivered an angle slam. Matthews kicked out of that. Matthews went for a stomp, but Copeland was able to counter that with the spear, got the 1-2-3 victory. And then after the match was over, Copeland snapped. He's got a problem with the House of Black coming off of the loss at Dynasty. So he was going to give Matthews the concerto. But then the lights went out. And when they came back on, Malachi Black was in the ring. He told Copeland to do it. And even Matthews said, do it. Copeland picked up the chair, held it up, but then turned over towards Malachi Black instead. Lights went out, and when they came back on, both guys were gone. So Adam Copeland had his chance to take out Matthews, but he didn't do it. Turned his attention to Black. The mind games being played by Malachi Black. Good match, predictable outcome. Obviously, they're going with Malachi versus Adam Copeland at some point. Yeah, it would be nice if Black won the title, but I'll believe it when I see it. Next up, we had Samoa Joe versus Isiah Kassidy, which is basically a match designed to rebuild Joe after losing the title at Dynasty. Really, this went on longer than it needed to be. This could have been like a 2-minute squash match. I think it went like 5 minutes. Isiah Kassidy was mocking Joe, like wrapping the towel around his neck and dancing around. Cassidy took a cheap shot, went for the eye, went for a dive, but Joe just walked out of the way. And Joe did pick up the win. Muscle buster. No surprise here. Rehabbing Joe from the loss. And then we had Orange Cassidy come to the ring, and he said that after what happened in the parking lot fight where Trent attacked Chuck Taylor after it was over, Chuck will never wrestle again. And Trent interrupted the segment. Security had to hold Orange Cassidy back. Chris Statlander was out there. And you had Trent saying that Chuck Taylor's career is over because of Orange Cassidy. And then we had Don Callis, of all people, show up. I mean, it was in Winnipeg. He whispered something to Orange Cassidy, and then Orange Cassidy left with him. So I guess the plot thickens. What's going on here with Orange Cassidy and Don Callis? Next up, we had a backstage promo from Jack Perry. He said, once again, he's doing what's best for AEW. People might not see it right now, but a sacrifice is being made, and it is a new era under the Elite. We had Chris Jericho versus Shibata in an FTW match. You had Chris's dad, Ted Irving, at ringside for this one. Jericho hit one of the worst lion salts of his career. Basically, his knees connected with Shibata. And then Jericho brought out a bag of rubber hockey pucks. He ended up getting slammed on the rubber hockey pucks. And then Jericho, he got the upper hand again. He started throwing the pucks at Shibata, and then he placed a trash can over Shibata's head, started hitting the trash can with the kendo sticks, but having no effect. Shibata kept walking towards Jericho with each shot. Jericho was in the corner, and then Shibata headbutted Jericho with the trash can still on his head. Then Shibata grabbed 2 kendo sticks. He handed Jericho one. They both sat down and did the thing where they trade kendo stick shots. Kind of goofy, but that's Shibata's gimmick. And then Shibata pulled out a table, was going to use it, but Big Willie, Big Bill, came in there, chokeslammed Shibata through the table, and Jericho finally won. Another match where Jericho was not losing in Winnipeg. Shibata is basically enhancement talent, but it was fairly entertaining for what it was, and Big Bill interfering, no real surprise. We had the announcement that Stokely Hathaway and Chris Statlander would be banned from the Willow Nightingale versus Sky Blue Manitoba Massacre on Rampage, which is the Rampage main event. Rampage is live as we speak, but I'm doing Dynamite only. Didn't feel like doing Rampage. I mean, one of the matches for Rampage is Takeshita versus Lightning London. So I was like, I think I'm just going to stick with recapping Dynamite. Next up, we had Claudio versus Brian Cage. And it was a good match, but another predictable one. Cage is basically enhancement talent. When he's on Dynamite, he's losing. When he's on Rampage or Collision, the odds of him winning drastically go up. So the crowd was chanting meat. It was competitive, and they each did the 619 and a discus lariat. They exchanged those moves. Claudio's is the Swiss 19, of course. And then Claudio did the big swing and got the win via tap out with the sharp shooter. Next up, we had a backstage promo from Rocky Romero, who challenged Kyle O'Reilly to a match on Rampage. Again, not caring enough about that to recap it. We had the final match of the evening, which was Serena Deeb versus Mariah May, which was at 9:45. So I guess technically the women got the main event, if you want to count the match being the main event segment, even though it wasn't the last segment of the show and not the big hook for the end. They did this match. It was pretty solid. Again, predictable. Serena Deeb coming back, focusing on Toni Storm. So, of course, she's going to win here. But a good match with these two. Mariah May got in some offense, came off the top with a top rope missile drop kick, delivered the hip attack, but Deeb kicked out. And then Mariah hit her with a running knee. Again, Deeb kicked out. And then Deeb applied a single leg crab, started smashing Mariah May's knee into the mat, and Toni Storm, who was there at ringside, finally threw in the towel, and Serena Deeb officially gets her title match at Double or Nothing. We had a little backstage segment with Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Copeland, and Kyle O'Reilly basically offered some backup with Copeland against the House of Black, which Copeland appreciated. But it seems like he wants to go at it on his own. We'll see what happens there. We had our final segment of the evening, or at least of Dynamite, because Rampage was right after and is actually going on as we speak. Looks like Jay White just picked up a victory. No shock there. And he's beating up Darius Martin or Dante Martin, one of them. But yeah, no surprise there again. I'll comment on Rampage. I have it here on the TV if something happens. But yeah, Jay White just beating up beating up the Martin guy. And we had Kenny Omega making his return to AEW. And he cut this very emotional promo. He got this massive introduction from Justin Roberts. Omega talked about diverticulitis and how he was told by the doctors that he was lucky. He was apparently 24 hours from dying. He said he wanted to come back and wrestle, but it wasn't that simple. And for a period, he had to stop watching. He thought he was going to have to retire. And he watched Dynasty, and he said that with history being made, he started shaking because he realized he was going through withdrawal. And he said he was making a promise. It's not over until he exhausts every single option, even if there's a 1% chance of retiring. He then turned his attention to the Young Bucks, and he said that what they've been doing is embarrassing, and I did it again with the MVP. There's still one EVP, and that's him. They may have fired him from the Elite, but they cannot fire him as an EVP. Okada came out there. Crowd popped big for this. Their history in New Japan, of course, being one of the top feuds in the history of Japanese wrestling. They had a stare down. Crowd was chanting, "Holy shit." And Omega said that in a couple months, they'll settle things in the ring. And Okada said he's the best bout machine now. And then Jack Perry from behind attacked Omega. Security tried to intervene. Perry hit them with steel chairs, and Omega started to fight back, but he was clutching his midsection. He went for a V trigger, but Okada tripped him, and then Perry used the chair, hit Omega in the midsection with the steel chair. And then the Young Bucks came down, and the Young Bucks teased that they were not happy with Jack Perry's actions. But then, of course, it was a swerve. They gave Omega the EVP trigger, and then FTR came down to make the save. A little too late, guys. The damage was done here, but they did come down. And then we transitioned into Rampage. We had Omega put on a stretcher, and he was taken to the back, but then the Young Bucks jumped FTR, and then they knocked Omega out of the stretcher, tipped it over. So it looks like Omega is not going to be the authority figure for the time being. Like this was basically an angle to write him off until he's able to wrestle again, which could be several months. I mean, hopefully it's sooner than later, and he makes a quick recovery. Best wishes to Kenny Omega. Like when he comes back and faces Okada, it's gonna be an epic match for sure. All in all, I thought it was a great angle at the end. Everything was well done. You got some heat on the Elite. You set up the future once Omega returns. I liked it. And beating him up in Winnipeg, nice touch here. So very well done. The rest of the show was okay. Matches are just too predictable. Tony Khan, the matchmaker, has got to start booking guys at a similar level, like book top guy versus top guy, or mid-carder versus mid-carder, or bottom guy versus bottom guy, like top guy versus bottom guy. They do it way too much, and it's just the predictability is something I think he needs to work on as a booker, and maybe get somebody to change things up a little bit. But final angle was great. I give the show a B-. mostly because of the main angle. The rest of Dynamite was probably in the C plus to C territory, just okay. But I really enjoyed the final segment with Omega and the whole attack and everything. That was strong, and I thought that elevated Jack Perry as a heel. Good stuff. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the recap. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up on YouTube. Follow No DQ on social media. And of course, stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest wrestling news and rumors. I'll see you guys Friday night after SmackDown. Take care. Buy a shirt, NoDQ.com/merch. Say yes to No DQ. And I will see you all next time.